Oh, what a night, what an exit poll, and what an unbelievable result. I'm Christopher Hope, Telegraph's chief political correspondent. I'm reporting here from College Green for this week's Choppers Election podcast, the final one of this campaign. That's right, Boris Johnson's Conservative Party stormed to victory overnight, winning 364 seats, giving him a majority of 78 over Labour's 203 MPs. Finally, the PM, Boris Johnson, can get Brexit done. It was an amazing night, a dramatic night. I was up for most of it, had 3 hours sleep. I was up at 5 a.m. this morning to report on the moment when Boris Johnson won his majority. Lib Dem leader Jo Swinson lost her seat to the SNP by just 149 votes. And in Northern Ireland, Nigel Dodds, the DUP's Westminster leader, lost his Belfast North seat to Sinn Féin. And the Brexit Party, Nigel Farage, won a grand total of 0 seats. And Labour's longest-serving MP, Dennis Skinner, lost his seat to the Tories. And after Labour's worst results since 1935, Jeremy Corbyn is saying this morning he won't lead the party into another election, but he won't say when he's quitting. So why did Labour's Red Wall never come to be? How did the Tory party win over millions of working-class voters? And when on earth will Jeremy Corbyn stand down as Labour leader? Well, as I say, I'm here now on College Green in Westminster, and I'm grabbing MPs, peers, business leaders as they walk past. I'm going to walk around now and see who I can find. So I'm now with Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary. Literally bumped into you on Victoria Street as you bundled out of your department. You're back here, 5 more years of Conservative rule. What a night.
Well, it's just been an absolutely fantastic result for the country overall. It's sad to see some really good colleagues go, and you know that's always going to be tinged with sadness. Yeah. But you know, having a majority, serious majority, means that we can, you know, in the words of the campaign, we can get the country moving.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
And you know, I've been straight back into the department.
I know. I saw you were there. You're wearing your badge again.
Really warm welcome by the team there. And we're ready to go.
It's the dino rod result, isn't it? You know, to use the language that Boris Johnson used on the campaign.
Yeah,
trail.
it just means we can just get things moving. It's Brexit, of course, and then removing that blockage and all the things that have been blocked in Parliament because.
And your majority went up.
In West Suffolk, my majority went up by about 6,000.
And these are new people voting Tory for the first time, as Boris Johnson said this morning at 7 a.m, where you were just over there.
Yeah, well,
I was there too. I mean, that's amazing.
So we're acutely aware of this, and the fact that, you know, when people have put their trust in us, it's our job to deliver for them. So, you know, especially as the Health Secretary, I feel this very much.
Well, your number one priority. He said you are the number one priority.
Well, that's right, and quite rightly. And the truth is, I've been in more hospitals in the last 6 weeks than I have been in all my life before then.
Yes.
And it is one of the things that binds the country together. And we've got to deliver on the NHS agenda in the commitments that we made, the really clear commitments. I know there was a load of political flack around them, but they were very clear commitments. And so I've already been talking about going with them. And
it's his number one priority, Boris Johnson, isn't it? And this audience now, in the old days it was called Mondeo Man, now it's C1, C2, it's blue collar Tory, isn't it? And that's quite exciting for your party.
Aspirational working people, and for them the NHS is incredibly important, and so is having the strong economy that helps put bread on the table and helps pay for the good public services. It's a classic One Nation agenda. Strong economy and strong public services.
Before you go to your next meeting, will the government slow down? Will it up its pace?
No.
Will it be mad?
We can, to coin a phrase, Chris, we can get stuff done.
Blimey, on that note, thank you. All the best. See you soon. Cheers. That's Matt Hancock there. He's just literally walked out of his apartment on Victoria Street, straight into me. So we've got him an interview for our podcast, and to share the excitement amongst these politicians. There are 3 years of getting nowhere quickly. Well, now they're about to get motoring and do stuff in government, and he's quite excited. I'm here on College Green with Gavin Barwell, Theresa May's former Chief of Staff. Brexit's going to happen, Gavin.
At last, after all this time. So I'm not one of those people that voted Remain in the referendum, but I'm a Democrat, and I believe that, you know, once people have voted for it, it had to happen, and it's been such a long wait. but this election result means we can be confident that we are going to leave on the 31st of January.
And the deal that will be going forward through Parliament is that basically 95% of the deal which you negotiated with a different version of a backstop, or no backstop in fact.
Yeah, so I think there's two different, it's not, from my point of view, you wouldn't be surprised, I slightly prefer Theresa's deal, but there's two basic differences. On the actual divorce agreement, the Northern Ireland bit, as you say, and then the future relationship is a bit more distant than Theresa's would have been. It's more like a sort of Canada-style relationship. But look, I spent 2 years asking people to compromise. We couldn't get our deal through, so I will back this deal because it's the best way forward.
And this deal, of course, has the EU compromising a bit too. It feels like both sides are giving, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, he got the important thing he got out of them was this exit mechanism if both communities in Northern Ireland agree. So that's important. That is a significant win. But look, what we need now is to move forward as a country. Exactly as he said this morning. We need to get the withdrawal agreement through. We need to focus on what kind of detailed future relationship we want, and all the other things in politics that you and I and the people who listen to this podcast care about, our NHS, net zero, all those things.
Well, just on that, the people who have voted Tory last night are not the normal Tory voter, and Boris Johnson made quite clear, and I was over at the QE2 Centre at 7 a.m. this morning, he made quite clear the party will change now and will reflect the new kind of C2, C1 blue-collar Tory members, and that's quite exciting for your party.
Yeah, look, and I really liked his tone this morning, because I think there's a danger in politics that the Conservative Party tends, in my opinion, to fluctuate between panic and complacency. And when you win, actually what you want is a bit of humility. Yes, Boris managed to get some people who really loved what he was saying to vote for him, but there were other people who were like, I don't really like either of the options, but this is better than Corbyn. And he recognised that in what he said and said, look, I'm going to win over your trust. And also it is crucial that having got this different electoral geography, if you like, behind us, that we understand that, and that's got implications for other policies. And if I could single out one thing,
please do.
I think a lot of the people that voted to leave, it wasn't just about the EU, it was a feeling that their communities were being left behind. And so we've got to make sure we've got an economy in this country where productivity, is equal across the country. It's not just London and the southeast that are getting all the spoils, but the whole country is benefiting. And that's something Theresa cared about, it's something that he's really passionate about too. So that's a hugely important issue for the next few years.
And we're at the beginning of a 10-year, two-term Johnsonian government.
Don't be complacent.
Day one, Gavin.
Don't be complacent. It's a big win. But British politics has been so volatile in recent years. What the Conservative Party needs to do is be humble, to work hard, to prove to those people that backed us for the first time in their lives that we were worthy of their support. So yes, there is that possibility, but we shouldn't start talking about it now. Get to work, deliver on the manifesto.
When's the next election?
So I hope it's going to be in 5 years' time, and I hope it's not going to be in December.
2024, you heard it here, folks. Gavin Barwell, thank you for talking to Chopper's Brexit / election podcast. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
Gavin Barwell there, Lord Barwell, of course, who was the Chief of Staff for Theresa May in the last government. And most of the deal that he helped negotiate is what will become the Brexit deal when Britain now almost certainly leaves on January 31st. Quite upbeat, but a warning there to Boris Johnson and maybe to Tory party members not used to change, that change is going to come to the party's policies. The question is whether they like it or not. Well, we'll wait and see. I'm here with Charlie Falconer, Lord Falconer, the former Lord Chancellor. Charlie, you do advise the Labour Party on anti-Semitism. What's the lesson in this election for them?
Well, I think in relation to anti-Semitism, we characterised ourselves as the nasty party because we were ultimately anti-Semitic. We were ultimately running a leadership group that was favouring a particular faction in a brutal way. The way that the candidate, for example, was changed in Bassett law indicated a degree of central control that was unacceptable. We've got to change, not just on the anti-Semitism issues, and we've got to change urgently. We've also got to change on those other factionalism issues, and as quickly as possible.
What's alarming for the Labour Party is the Tories are now grabbing the centre ground. They are representing Labour seats, in Durham, in the north, former mining areas, Sedgefield, for goodness sake, your friend Tony Blair's seat. He must be appalled this morning. What on earth can happen? What need the party do? Is it a move back to the centre ground?
Well, we've got to change direction. We lost not just the classic Labour-Tory marginals overnight, we also lost, as you've just said in your question, parts of our heartland in the Midlands and the North. We have got to speak to those voters who felt we were not speaking to them in what we've been offering. All the chickens came home to roost last night as the votes were counted. And the chickens were, we showed no leadership on Brexit. We offered a domestic policy agenda that people didn't believe in, and we had a leader who did not speak to the electorate in a sufficiently clear and attractive way. And part of that was anti-Semitism and extreme factionalism within the party.
What will happen next then? There'll be a dark Christmas of the soul, won't there, as the party works out what to do. There's 5 years to think about it. There's a long time. There's no deputy leader. Jeremy Corbyn will leave when he says so because he won't fight the next election. What happens next?
Well, you make it sound like it's not urgent. In my view, it is urgent, because if you don't signal a change of direction with a new leader, then those heartland seats that have left us will not think about us as an alternative again. And if you look at Scotland, we lost all of our seats save one in 2015. A very few of them came back in 2017, and we lost them again overnight last night because we hadn't changed direction. So it's urgent to signal a change of direction. And separately, lots of decisions are going to be made about the United Kingdom's relationship with Europe and with the rest of the world. Are we going to, as it were, become much, much closer to the United States of America and separating ourselves from Europe, or are we going to stay with Europe, albeit out of the European Union?
Should the party embrace Brexit now, Charlie?
It has to, of course it does. But
That's not the issue anymore.
That's not the issue, no. Of course we're leaving the European Union on the 31st of January because of the result of this general election. But that leaves open the question of, do we just turn our back on Europe and do any trade deal we can? Or do we say our position is outside the European Union, like lots of European countries, we want to stay close to Europe and not, as it were, look only to the United States for our trading relationships?
I'm going to call you a new Labour grandee, if I may, but you definitely comment on that. Who are the new Labour group in the Labour Party you want to support to challenge the left in the battle for the soul of the party?
I don't think it's a question of new Labour challenging the left. It is, we can't move forward as a party unless we bring a stop to this factionalism and find somebody whom left and right can unify around. And there are people on the right and people on the left who the party would not rally around, but there are people on the left and on the right whom the party would rally around.
Who are you thinking of right now?
Well, the names that could be in play, I think, would be Emily Thornberry, Keir Starmer, Lisa Nandy, Anja Rayner, Yvette Cooper. Yes, they would all be people who would be serious contenders and would be people who could, because the difficulty for any party of the left at the moment is to be able to appeal both to the heartland seats that will essentially leave and the Remainer voters of the cities.
Charlie Falconer, thank you so much on this cold day in Westminster for talking to us. Happy Christmas from Chopper's Election Podcast.
And happy Christmas to you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lord Falconer there, Charlie Falconer, a great friend of Tony Blair. Of course, as I said there, his Tony Blair's old seat in Sedgefield lost to the Tories, and he's saying we can't hang around. There's an urgency to get Labour sorted out, to find a real challenge to Boris Johnson's leadership, because right now he's looking at a 10-year rule of Boris Johnson in number 10, and that's not what Labour want.
Hi, I'm Claire Newell. When I tell people I'm the Telegraph's investigations editor, they sometimes ask me if it means I'm a spy and have lots of disguises. And there is a bit of blending into the background, but generally I spend lots of time working with sources, piecing together evidence to reveal wrongdoing and hold the powerful to account. Our stories question, scrutinise and inform. But we can't do that without the support of our subscribers. Their contribution allows us to dedicate time to stories, such as our investigation into the allegations that Sir Philip Green had sexually and racially harassed staff. So if you'd like to support what we're doing and get unlimited access to the huge range of quality journalism on politics, sport, business, culture and more, head to telegraph.co.uk/chopper, where you can get 30 days free access to the Telegraph online. And after that, it's just £2 a week.
So I'm here with Carolyn Fairbairn, the DG of the CBI. Carolyn, Brexit's going to happen. How do you feel about that?
Well, Chris, we have accepted Brexit's going to happen since the referendum and backed every deal that came to Parliament. So we have got some more certainty out of this result. We now know that some of the harder left policies are not going to happen. And we also know more about the timetable of Brexit. But there are big questions still to answer about the shape of that trade deal. So the uncertainty now needs to be the next frontier.
But the pound has soared on Brexit happening. Is the CBI as delighted as the markets are about Brexit?
Well, I think that we have always said it's about how you do Brexit, and the fact that we have a timetable, the deal will come back. We will be supporting it. We supported it last time. This is all about the next phase, which is about what kind of deal do we want with the European Union, and there we'd love it to get practical, out of the realm of ideology. Come on, let's talk about where the benefits are for our country, where we want to have frictionless trade, the importance of a deal for our services. That's actually where the real upside will come from for our country.
So for you, it's all about June, isn't it? It's do we extend the transition period in June, or we get a deal by the end of next year, which is looking difficult?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really tight timetable. We know that. But, the best way of trying to meet that will be to get going very quickly in January, get business around the table. We put some ideas already into the government about how a new trade architecture could work, best in class, best in the world, get business around the table, make it practical, get a good deal. I think we shouldn't be boxing ourselves in to deadlines that might create another cliff edge, because we know that costs our industries billions of pounds. So let's try not to do that. But we can step forward from this with some optimism about how we get that deal, and also get back to the foundations of our economy and build a great 2020s.
Do you have a bet on the horses, Carolyn?
A bet on the horses? Did I have a bet? No, never. No.
What are the odds on Brexit happening at the end of next year?
Oh gosh, I wouldn't put numbers on it, but what I can say is that you will have businesses really keen to work with this government to try and get the best possible deal for the country.
Didn't your members dodge a bullet with Jeremy Corbyn diving in the polls and barely getting over 200 seats?
Well, as you know, there were policies that Labour had that we supported, on skills, on infrastructure, really good stuff. There were other areas where we made no bones about it. They were deeply challenging and bad for our economy. The nationalisation, the Inclusive Ownership Fund, we will not be sorry to see the back of those. But some of the questions about inclusive growth and how we get a fairer economy, they're the right questions. So, as I say, we'll be looking forward to working with what we hope will be a pro-enterprise and stable government to get our economy really off to the races in 2020.
And the key thing is stability, isn't it?
Do you know, stability is so important. We've had layer upon layer of uncertainty. The uncertainty of some of those left-wing hard Labour policies, the just not knowing the timetable for Brexit has been deeply destabilising. So as I say, 2 out of 3 ain't bad in terms of uncertainty lifting, but we must have that good trade deal. And that has to be one which recognises the need for alignment in some of our industries, that recognises how important our services are to our economy. As I say, we're ready to roll up our sleeves with the government, starting, on the 1st of January to get all of that going.
Do you believe the hype about a new One Nation Tory party? They've got to change now to embrace these former mining towns that now voted Conservative.
Well, I've never quite, I've always liked the ring of One Nation Tory, but I've never quite known what it means. I mean, what I think we'd like it to mean is that we do need growth for this country that's inclusive. It really must reach into the regions.
And across all regions.
That's what I mean, and across the regions of our country. And actually, business has so much to offer. I was in Hull last week seeing a new £105 million investment by Reckitt Benckiser. They're doing half their innovation globally now in Hull. It's bringing jobs and prosperity to that part of the country. That's what we need more of. And if we can support that, bring investment to our country in those parts of the nation that have suffered most, that is what I hope One Nation Toryism means.
And just finally, Carolyn Fairbairn, will business be happier that Jeremy Corbyn isn't in power, or that Brexit's happening?
Oh, what a trade-off. You always ask me these impossible trade-offs. We're looking to the future now. This is about what happens next. A great Brexit deal, real focus on inclusive growth for the country, and a new partnership between business and government.
Carolyn Fairbairn, as ever, thank you very much for talking on the Job Inspector podcast.
Thank you, Chris.
Carolyn Fairbairn then, she's the Director General of the CBI, and they've been very lukewarm about Brexit, I think, and she won't admit it. They're much more worried about what a Corbyn government could have done by nationalising large swathes of the British economy. They've dodged a bullet there. The question is, can they get a deal they're happy with by, an idea of a deal by June next year, or we may have to extend the transition period. That's the new challenge for the CBI. I'm here with Kate Hoey, the former Brexiteer Labour MP. Kate, Brexit's going to happen.
Brexit's going to happen. And what the public have said is we don't like not being listened to. We voted to leave, and the Labour Party ignored us. They didn't honour the referendum. They have suffered. Obviously, Jeremy Corbyn has to take a lot of the blame, but I actually blame John McDonnell for changing some of the policies and pushing Jeremy. And I also blame a lot of those Labour MPs who wasted so many hours trying to delay and frustrate. They have been punished, but they've also taken down one or two very good MPs, and I'm so sorry, like Caroline Flint, that we've lost, who did try to honour the referendum.
Caroline Flint and Don Valley, who's very clear, honour that referendum because there's no other choice. What on earth happens to the Labour Party now? Jeremy Corbyn says he'll stay on until they find a new leader, but there has to be a challenge, that left of centre thinking from somewhere on the right, doesn't there?
Well, I think that, you see, that's where I would have liked Caroline to be in, because I think Caroline would have made a great leader. But the problem is, of course, the membership of the party is not likely to be voting for anyone radically different from the kind of policies that Jeremy's putting, because there were some good things in the manifesto, but it was also a manifesto that was not really credible and was not going to be able to be paid for without putting up a lot of extra burden on lower paid people as well. And people didn't believe that they could do it all.
There's some certainty now. There's been so much uncertainty in the House of Commons, hasn't there? With it's been going around in circles. It's like
Well, I think a lot of us who left, and said we weren't standing again, we kind of said that if all that hadn't happened, we would have been feeling so sorry about leaving. But it was such a dreadful Parliament, and I think the public realised that. They were watching it and they knew they had to get that majority government. It's bigger than I thought it would be, but it does mean there's certainty. And I'm very pleased as a Brexiteer, because I think it means that the European Union now will realise we're not going back, we're not going to revoke Article 50, we're not going to have a second referendum, we're leaving, and they are going to have to be a little bit more careful about what they try and make us do. And I hope that the new Prime Minister, the old Prime Minister, will actually be quite firm and get some negotiators.
And the electorate can see that. They can see that it's very, what was the solution to the vote in 2016 was not to have another referendum or not to revoke it, because neither one's really resolved the problem. You have to embrace it.
Well, I always thought, our policy about saying we wanted a new deal that was going to, then Jeremy wouldn't say what he wanted and then have a second. What would happen then? If it had been similar, then we would have still been in that same position. So I think the public have shown, as usual, that they are much cleverer than the politicians think they are.
Quite. And what's your plans now you've left Parliament? You've done a good interview with Alison Pearson in the Telegraph. Will you be joining in an advisor role, a government of all the talents?
It's just been so nice to go through. This is my 10th general election, but I haven't fought it. Yes. And it's been lovely to watch everybody else, because you're in a little bubble when you're fighting and your election, you don't know really what's going on. So I've enjoyed that. I've still got a lot of winding down after 30 years, an office to clear out completely. Yes. And who knows? I'm not going to just go and sort of hide in a room.
Well, you're full of vitality, and you endorsed Richard Tice although you couldn't vote for him in Hartlepool, but you endorsed him.
I did feel that there were one or two seats where I thought the Brexit Party might have won, and I think that would have been quite good, and Richard Tice, of course, is one of those. But in the end, Nigel Farage should be thanked by the Conservatives, because if they hadn't stood in those Labour seats, many of the Labour voters would not have switched to Tory, but they took away and they voted for the Brexit
Who's
Party.
Your politician of the year, Boris Johnson or Nigel Farage?
I think they should both get a little medal.
On that note, Kate Hoey, all the best for the future. Thank you for talking to Chopper's Election Podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kate Hoey there, the former MP for Lambeth and, of course, Labour MP in a very Remain area, now out of Parliament, and just can scarcely conceal her delight that Britain will be leaving on January 31st. Her efforts, her often lone efforts in that Labour Party to take Britain out of the EU are about to come to pass. Well, that's all for today. Thank you to my guests, Matt Hancock, Carolyn Fairbairn, Kate Hoey, Charlie Falconer, Lord Falconer, and Lord Barwell, Gavin Barwell. Thank you to my producers, Theo Ludis and Elliot Lampitt. And thank you to you for listening. We wouldn't do it without your support. Well, what an extraordinary night it's been. Boris Johnson has won a landslide, the biggest landslide since 1987. A 30-year record for a Tory leader. Extraordinary. What does it mean for Brexit? Well, it means firstly we're leaving on June 31st, as the first part of Brexit will now almost certainly happen. But what will Brexit look like? And what's fascinating, I think, is that the scale of the Tory majority means that a softer Brexit is more likely than a harder one, because they're not required to get the deal through with the support of Eurosceptic hardliners in the European Research Group. So quite strangely, a big vote for Boris Johnson may result in a softer Brexit than had the result been closer. Anyway, we'll find out in future episodes of Chopper's Brexit podcast. Back next week as usual in the Red Lion pub. Do subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already. If you've enjoyed our election shows, I'd love it if you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And thank you to Stephen, who did just that this week. If you want to get in touch, you can tweet us at Brexit Broadcast or email us choppersbrexitpodcast@telegraph.co.uk. There's really never, ever, ever been a better time to subscribe to the Telegraph to stay on top of the best news and comment that we can offer. For 30 days free access, go to telegraph.co.uk/chopper. If you're listening on Friday, sign up today, Friday, and you'll get 50% off your subscription price. I'm going to put links in the show notes to pieces that I think you'll enjoy. One from former Labour MP Tom Harris, who tells us to spare a thought for MPs who lost their jobs live on TV last night, like Jo Swinson. And a piece by our special correspondent Harry de Ketville, who looks into the man behind the hair and tells us who is the real Boris Johnson. But always buy your copy of the Daily Telegraph. You won't regret it. Until next time, cheerio!
Hello listeners, I'm Danny Boyle, just interrupting Chopper to introduce myself. I'm the Telegraph's Commuter Editions editor, which means it's my job to provide you with great journalism that makes your journey to and from work as enjoyable as possible. I can't prevent train delays or guarantee you won't get caught in the rain, but I can make sure you're up to date with the best of the Telegraph every morning and evening. My colleague Chris Price and I produce briefings to bring you up to speed in just 2 minutes at both ends of the day. Now, they're also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Just search The Briefing or follow the link in the show notes to this episode.